Hey guys, welcome to another episode of StatTAC. Today I'm going to be going over the Trijicon Credo 1-4x24 with the red BDC reticle. I've had this optic for about 2 years now almost, probably going on 3. And I'm just going to go right now the specs of it. So it's a 30mm tube. It's got a 25mm objective lens. The FOV is about 100 yards, or sorry, at 100 yards is 31 meters to 32 meters. It's made from 60-61 aircraft aluminum grade. Weight is 17 ounces. And you got an eye relief about 2.6 to 3.9 according to Trijicon's website. This optic usually runs for about MSRP is about on Trijicon's website is $1,044. You can usually find it, depending on if you get military or law enforcement discounts or whatever, for around between like mid 600s. Also, Amazon, I think it runs for about $734. To be honest, it's a little pricey for what you're getting. If you can usually find it on sale, I'd probably go for it a little cheaper if you want this optic. So the reticule, for this one is rated for the 223 55 grain reticle. It's got the holes for it on the way down. I'll post up a diagram of the optic. Holds are pretty accurate. It's just if you're using like XM 195, from my experience, is that I have to aim about 100 meters below, so the next hash down for what it's supposed to be, and then it usually makes the sense packs there. But if I'm using a full power ammo, the holes are pretty spot on, even with like 62 grain MA55. I do like the BDC reticule. I like the ring around it. It allows you to kind of find your target quicker and get on your target for like closer engagements. Has a little more speed for that. Still struggle with it. I like to focus on that center dot that's in there between the crosshairs for the little more finer stuff. So I usually get too caught up in that when speed shooting, but it's kind of made me better over time too. So for this optic, you're going to want to use about 100 meter zero for the holds, for them to be accurate. I have done a 25 to 300 meter zero with it, which I was actually running for quite a while with it. And the holds were pretty on point. They're a little off once you get out there towards like 400. But for the most part, they held up pretty well. And you can also, for like with the way the reticle is kind of designed, I don't think it was meant for it, but you can kind of use those, the way the edges are broken up around the reticle to for the fast acquisition, is you can use those to as windage holds, which I found useful when shooting out the 500. On certain days when it's kind of windy, I was able to hold off to like where it cuts down on the bottom right hand corner to hold, I guess, like left a little bit for like a 10-mile-an-hour wind, and I was making impacts on a 18-inch plate at 500 yards pretty consistently with that. So this optic is usable under night vision, either passively, or if you got a PVS 14, the mount works pretty well with that. So you can either mount it behind it or in front of it, depending on kind of what your setup is. With that in the front, you know, it's a little easier to see the reticle. The illuminator does get dim enough, so when you run up behind the PVS 14 behind it, you can see through it. I'd recommend kind of like getting the mount for the PVS 14 to mount to your rifle, because it stabilizes it better, and it's better to it's easier to do than trying to passively aim through your the Credo with it mounted to your helmet. It's kind of a pain in the ass. The illumination does get dim enough to it where it doesn't really wash everything out. But if you mount in front of it, you don't need to do the worry about the illumination, because you can see the edged reticle pretty fine. The pictures I'm going to post up, they're kind of shit. So be aware of that. I was just trying to put hold the PVS 14 in my left hand and the phone in my right to take the pictures. But you can kind of give an idea of how it looks. The picture with the illumination on it from behind, I think I used the second dimmest brightest setting. It was a little bit of a bitch to even get that. So yeah, just take that in mind. These pictures aren't the greatest, and it also looks a lot better and like looking through your actual eye than a camera lens, and probably on screen, so just keep in mind of that. But it is definitely usable under night vision. It's just a little bit of pain in the ass. That's why I'm kind of recommending get a mount for it for your PVS 14, and you'll pretty much be golden with it. So we're gonna go to the pros and cons. I'm gonna go ahead and start off with the pros. Let's talk about the optic. It's a light LPVO. It's a 1-4 though. Apparently Trijicon, I think, makes probably one of the lightest LPVOs for this 1-4, and it's 17 ounces. It's 17.1 actually, but it's a 1-4, which kind of is like, yeah, I mean, if you want, I guess, a red dot and like a magnifier all like one package, like it's kind of like a good idea. But if you say you went out and bought an A, like, so if you're really concerned about weight and you go out and buy an ACOG with an RMR or basically another red dot, you're only coming out to about like 10 ounces total. So I mean, like, even if you like decide to run like a T2, like you're only adding like, it's still under 17 ounces, so it would come out to like, and like again, like 10-15 ounces. But this is also if you're running it with like an ACOG with some sort of red dot, which honestly is probably better, because like honestly I don't really use the 2 or 3 times between on the magnification of it. I just go 1 to 4, or if you want to spend the money, probably go with an LCAN. I guess the only thing is the eye relief is actually pretty forgiving on this, especially in the 1 times. You can, if you're in some weird awkward position, you usually can see through it pretty clearly. Now once you get up to 4 times, it's less forgiving. So if you're in those awkward positions, like say you're using a VTAC barrier, you know, like on the ground trying to look through it, you're gonna have a little bit of a pain in the ass trying to get that proper sight picture. The glass is very clear. When I got it back from Trijicon, I was using it for a while. I don't really touch the glass too much, so it gets dusty or whatever, and it gets a little like smudged, or just kind of like clogged. I don't want to say clogged, but this gets some light debris on it. The lens, the image gets a little kind of like darker, but after getting it back from Trijicon, after I had it serviced, the glass was like super clear for me. So just having it cleaned made a huge difference in glass clarity, especially when you're like shooting out the longer distances. It kind of really matters. So glass is great as long as it stays clean. I do like the quarter MOA clicks on it, which are really nice for making those adjustments. When you're just zeroing it, the more finer stuff depending on your zero. For this one I use 100 meter zero, so a quarter MOA, so it's like 1 inch at 100 yards, so it's like so it's a quarter of an inch at 100 yards for each MOA. It's got a return to zero, so if you take the top of the cap, you pull it up, it kind of like free spins, and then so you can really adjust it back down to zero, pop it down, and then that's where your return to zero, and then you can dial up or down from there. BDC reticle, it's great for target acquisition. It gives you that large circle, kind of like a EOTech kind of has with their for like the close-in stuff, so you can kind of that donut, so you can just kind of quickly, you don't have to really focus on that center dot, you just make sure your target's inside that donut. Quick acquisition, cuts your times down, especially on the 1 times. It's very true to a red dot. I wouldn't say it's there, but it's definitely very close. The 4 times is great. Kind of, I guess, like same thing as an ACOG. It allows you to reach out a little easier, and you can PID. For me, I wear glasses, so I can actually shoot this thing also too pretty well without glasses. With the eyepiece adjuster, you know, it fixes my stigmatism. So like the shit gets clear out to farther distances. Um, the illumination under nods, like I discussed earlier, works pretty good. The reticle is etched, so if the battery dies or the illumination fails, which I've had happen to me, you can still use it. It still holds 0. And then I also enjoy having the cap turrets. So it really doesn't. You don't really, since it's a LPVO, especially on 1-4. You're not going to be dialing for longer distance shots. It's got your holds, which are pretty accurate, and you can just snap your shots off there. Durability, I haven't had any problems holding 0 or like lens breaking, falling out, or anything. And I've put over like around 5,000 rounds or more through here. The only problem was the illumination. I'll probably discuss that more in the cons. It broke for me for some reason. So this part I'm going to discuss cons. The cons of the optic. The illumination sucks. If you're outside on a sunny day, it's definitely not going to be bright enough. I think it's kind of a problem with all Trijicon Credos optics in their mainline or whatever they cross. They came out with the HX, which got rid of the brightness or the dimness issue, and they're now brighter. But the brightness definitely looks good for like if it's like dusk or dawn or whatever, and you need that little bit to see in that weird time. You need to see your sight. You can just dial it up or down compared to that, and it works pretty well in there, and it also works well indoors, and it does get dim enough for night vision where you're not getting washed out. The magnifier, so the having that little nub on this one, on my Trijicon Credo 1-4, it's actually kind of like, it's not really smooth, and it's kind of stiff. When I was at an outdoor show, I was at a Trijicon booth, and I was playing with their other ones. And their other Trijicon Credos had a lot smoother of their magnification dials, or whatever you want to call it. And so, like, kind of coming back to mine, it was just not the same. And I really appreciate the smoother ones that they had on there, like 1-8s and stuff that I was trying out. Kind of wish that was like that on my 1-4. Let's see what else. Okay, another one is when I bought my 1-4, I wasn't really thinking too clearly, and I was more thinking about price. And if I spent like $200 more on this like sale that Primary Arms was having, I could have got a 1-6. I was trying to save money. I was like, I don't really need a 1-6. After having it for a while and starting to stretch out my ranges at different ranges that I go to, and like PIDing targets and stuff, and just like kind of just being able to have that like just a larger image of the target for accuracy. I wish I had that 1-6. The 1-4, it leaves, especially with the LPVO and this large one package thing that I have, is the magnification. A 1-4, it does the job, but having a 1-6 would be a lot better in my opinion, especially since it's like 17 ounces already, and if I can get an ACOG with an RMR or whatever, it's like 10 ounces I gotta fucking worry about, or 15 ounces. So that's already lighter, you know? So what? I could just go with the light package if I was going to go with the 1-4, so that's why I kind of wish I had the 1-6. So it's basically a heavier setup. The illumination dial. Apparently this is actually a pretty common thing with the Trijicon Credos, is the dial where the illumination is, it likes to malfunction or whatever. I'll post a video up what kind of happened. So it just kind of like stopped working, or it'd flicker when I'd shoot. But if I put my hand pressure on the cap where the battery is, the illumination would come on, and if I took it off, the illumination would turn off also. And also just kind of playing with the dial, turning them on and off, it would kind of come on real quick and turn off. I thought it was maybe like the little metal connectors getting pushed down, and they weren't getting a good connection on the battery. So I pushed those up a little bit, and that didn't work either. So I sent it back to Trijicon. 4 weeks later, about that time, I got my optic back, and they fixed the issue. And I guess the last part is the price. I think I discussed this earlier. I'm not sure though, but it's a little pricey. I mean, actually, I want to say it's pricey because if you're looking at a ACOG with an RMR, it's already over $1,000. Like this 1-4 for about between $600 and $700, or $600 and $800. You get that red dot power, or that 1 times of a red dot, and you get a 4 times. So, but with the price of being a little heavier, so I guess that's a pretty decent deal. So, at a conclusion of this review of the Trijicon Credo is I definitely would recommend, if you're kind of looking at 1-4, this is a great option, but I would highly recommend getting a 1-6 Credo, or their HX, or yeah, the HX series, because it has the brighter reticle. Also, for the weight, you kind of would want the 1-6, since you're paying, and it's just like it's like $200 more. So you might as well just save up for the 1-6, because you're gonna want the magnification eventually, and it's still cheaper than an ACOG with an RMR, even though or you could just get an ACOG, or an ACOG with like a Holosun or whatever with the RMR footprint, but and that's all still lighter than your LPVO with a mount, which is like already like close to 3 pounds right there. So it's if you're gonna get a LPVO, at least get a 1-6 Credo, in my opinion, or go the ACOG route. But if you're set on getting this 1-4, it's a great option if you just want a 1-4 LPVO with that true 1 power, and then the 4 times helps also. But yeah, guys, if you like this video, like, subscribe. Would recommend leaving a comment. Let me know how we're doing, so we can get some feedback to helping us improve. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good night.